My very first job in human resources, actually my very first time in a human resources department was as head of human resources, as HR director in the company that brought me in. I just want you to think about that. That was my start. And so imagine you got a job. I was in consulting. I was working with Pricewaterhouse at that time. And then Sterling Winthrop then, now part of GSK. As that I come in and become HR director. My first question was, what do HR people do? Found my answer by looking at others. I know what production does. I know what marketing does. So I thought, what am I going to do? But one thing that helped me very much, was my learning as a consultant to solve problems. So I realized that HR is actually, above all else, problem solving. Because as you move, no matter what you thought you knew, new problems will hit you, and you have to learn on the hoof. That's great learning for me. A few years later, I found myself with British American Tobacco. I was starting the HR function in British American Tobacco as HR director. And based on some of the things I had learned, we came up with this. I hope you can read it. I was fishing for slides, and I just realized I found this in my archive. And I said, our HR function's mission is to ensure that our people, like our brands, because British American Tobacco Company was a big brand company, to ensure that our people, like our brands, provide a sustainable competitive advantage by ensuring that the best talent is employed, developed and retained in an environment that fosters accomplishment and allows people to be the best that they can be. That was how we started. Whether we achieved this or not is there for other people to judge. But I think we did. Raising a people with unalloyed commitment, high integrity, and unquenchable thirst for excellence. And I remember my managing director telling me, you are creating a bubble. And I said, yes, we will. And he said, how will you know when you have succeeded? If we succeed, our people will be in demand. If nobody is coming into your shop to pick people, you got a problem. Why am I saying this? Because HR is a very unique calling. But I have very limited time, so I'll move very quickly. If you need to stop me, please stop me. I'm a teacher now. Many of you know this person. The HR world, indeed Nigeria, lost an icon recently. His name is Dr. Christopher Kolade. Passed away recently. He was a broadcaster. As we were growing up those days, then, of course, the only news you had was from radio. And here is the news presented by by Christopher Collade. It was a sound you grew up to know. He became a diplomat. He became a business executive, eventually an academic. Very versatile person. Permit me to just share with you the tribute I wrote on his person. We thank God for who he was and for the privilege of knowing him. A man who said a lot in his lifetime. He was a broadcaster after all, a communicator par excellence, but whose life said a lot more and who shared a lot more, that touched a lot more than he could ever have said. That was Dr. Christopher Collade. Why he was greatly mourned was not because of what he knew, was not because of what he did. It was all because of who he was that did all of this. See, when you look at behavior, all you see is behavior. But behavior is the tip of the iceberg. It is the tip of the iceberg. And all performance is behavior. You see a performance, it is effective. Then you say, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. When it's not effective, you say, no, this guy is ineffective. So, when we look at behavior, we infer competence. You don't see competence. You see behavior. And from that, you infer competence or incompetence. Why? Because, to be honest with you, there's a lot under the water. So that's what I want to do. I want us to look at what is behind, what's under the water. The first thing is knowing what you know. And that's knowledge. So the guy knows something. You don't see what I know. You see a behavior, and then you say, does this guy really know? But it's not because you can see my knowledge. You see a behavior and you make that inference. Then there's doing. That is how you do what you do. That's skill. Actually, skill is the application of knowledge. Then there's the third one, being. That's who you are. Who you are. And that's basically your attitude, your mindset. You see, it is this that determines how you use your knowledge and your skill. It is who you are that determines how you use your knowledge and skills to do whatever it is you're doing. Today we talk about AI. AI is resident in your knowledge. It's resident in your skills. And that's it. You can extend your knowledge and extend your skills by deploying AI. So that leaves us with a question. What is it then about who I am? And like I said, who you are determines how you use the knowledge and skills that you have. This is where EI emotional intelligence resides. So it's very important, therefore, that you look at it and just think about it. Who you are determining what you know and how you use what you know and the skills you develop. I think this is the centerpiece of what I want to talk about. Who you are. Dr. Claude was recognized and appreciated not for what he knew. He knew a lot. Not for his skills, but who he was. People like us, I never worked with him, but he touched my life because of who he was and what he gave. Learning must lead to demonstrable change. Learning must lead to demonstrable change. Improved performance, whether it's individual performance or organizational performance, comes from change in behavior. Now, I think it will strike you now that if it comes from change in behavior, something must be happening to skill, knowledge, and attitude, right? Okay. You see, organizations don't change. We talk about organizational change. Organizations don't change. It is the people that need to change. It is people that must change. So I say all trainings are not created equal. That's very important. There's knowledge training, there's skills training, there's that intervention that has to address your attitude and who you are. Training to provide new knowledge is different from one to provide new skills. And this must be reflected in the design of the training in and of itself. I spend a ton of money sending people on training programs. And I always say that part of the things I do today came from my frustration as somebody, as a HR person that was paying money, sending people on programs. And they come back, and they can tell you a whole lot about the training, but nothing has changed. Extremely frustrating. And I realized that this is something that must begin from the design stage. Only when learning leads to demonstrable change in individual and eventually organization performance can we say the learning has been effective. If attitude does not change, learning has not occurred. Because that is what determines how you use your knowledge and your skills. An intervention that will change attitude, the core of who you are, goes beyond mere training. It must lead to change in attitude, and I can assure you, change in attitude does not just happen like that. You cannot teach new attitude. New attitude is learned. And you know why? You know why people do not change attitude just like that? Because people do what they tell themselves. Nobody does what you tell them. I think it was probably one of the most humbling lessons I learned in leadership. Anybody who has attended a program that I've been involved in, I always start with this. And people will say to me, but come on, I can make you do something. I say, you can never make me or anybody do anything. And then it's, what if I put a gun to your head and tell you to jump? Won't you jump? And I said, well, okay, let's put it this way. When you put a gun to my head, what do you think I'm telling myself? I better jump before this lunatic kills me. Am I right? I assure you, nobody can take that power of choice from anybody. Not even your 10-year-old. Junior, if by the time I get back home today and your room is still the way it is, you will see. And Junior tells himself, I don't want to see. What does he do? He goes and tidies his room. And you are sitting down there raising shoulder. That it is because you told him. No, it had nothing to do with what you said. Because some of them will tell you, this is not mommy. She will just come and shout. And he ignores you. Nobody. Attitude is locked from the inside. And it has to be unlocked. These are crucial considerations to ensure effective training transfer and meaningful returns on investment. What are you training for? There are 3 reasons a person does not perform very well. The person doesn't know what to do. You tell him, right? He doesn't know how to do it. You train him, you teach him, you show him how to do it. Then he has a choice to make. Do I really want to do it? That's a mindset. The company that I set up to do my consultancies is called 3E Performance. And we have an approach to change, to changing individual behavior. There are 3 elements to it. Now let me ask you, I come to you, Charles, right? Good, thanks. Permit me to refer to you. If I went to Charles and I said, Charles, it would be nice for you to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And I brought you a pair of climbing shoes. And I said, this is your Christmas present. You probably will look at me and say, what's wrong with this man? Did I tell him I want to climb Kilimanjaro? Am I right, sir? And because you're a nice person, you say, thank you very much. You collect the shoes and you put it on the shelf. Done. Let's look at it another way. If I came to you and I said, Charles, you know it's a good idea to climb the Kilimanjaro, and we discuss Kilimanjaro. And I'm able to give you a reason why climbing the Kilimanjaro is a great thing. And then you begin to say to yourself, but this idea of climbing the Kilimanjaro, now I agree it's a great thing, but I hear people can fall down, right? And I say, well, if you go with the right shoes, you can climb, and you will not fall. And then I hand over the shoes that actually brought you a pair of shoes. How soon might you try those shoes on? Probably sooner than if I just came and handed over the shoes to you. Am I correct, sir? See, that process of getting you to think about climbing the Kilimanjaro is the process I call engaging your mind. You challenge assumptions that he has made about climbing the Kilimanjaro. You reach deep into where these assumptions are held. You get people to open themselves up to new possibilities, to reframe and broaden their perspectives. That's engaging the mind of the person. Now, when you have done this, then you can equip the person. Because at this point, the person realizes a gap and understands the need to change, and they desire what it takes to make the change happen. Now they're open. You don't need to push. Actually, they are asking for it. That is when equipping happens. Unfortunately, what sometimes we do is to go to people and just hand over equipping to them without understanding and engaging their minds to begin with. And that's where it doesn't work. When you've equipped the person, then the third E is empower. Becoming a more effective person will be directly related to how much focus and effort is applied on the personal journey. And that's no longer so difficult because the person already wanted to make the change. You've engaged the mind. You've equipped the person. Now let's go. But even then, new issues will arise. But the person has taken ownership. And progress, measurement becomes extremely critical. So they begin to measure as well as requiring organizational support, all of the things you were talking about yesterday. And the ecosystem within which that implementation is going to take place. All of that begins to happen. You see, people do not resist change. We all came here today because we want to change something. Am I correct? We are always wanting to change. You cannot become who you want to become by remaining who you are. That suggests that there is an element there we want to change. What we don't want is to be changed. Nobody wants to be changed. Why? Because change makes you vulnerable. That's why. So, HR in its strategic role has a challenge. And it is this. In any strategic role you are in, your performance is built on a commitment to a future that is different from now. Not just about managing current performance. It's about a commitment to another future. And nobody in the organization is more crucial to that than human resources. It's not about the delivery of today. It's about what is the delivery like tomorrow. What organization are we building? So your role entails today's delivery. All right, you can't ignore today's delivery, otherwise you will lose credibility. But as you are delivering today, remember always it's about organizational growth and developing the next generation of leaders who will do what is being done today. That is your challenge. That's your calling. So, start by understanding what the learning intervention you are undertaking is about. Then evaluate the design and be sure that it will address the precise expectations. Is it to provide knowledge? Is it about developing new skills? Is it about changing mindsets? Or is it about all, actually? Knowledge that does not change mindset is unlikely to change behavior. So, will not be effective learning. You see, what is not acknowledged cannot be changed. So be sure the learners are prepared and engaged to a point of acknowledging what needs to be changed. They know what changes are expected of them and why. At British American Tobacco those days, there was something I used to do. For very expensive training. I ask you to come and, your name, you've been nominated for the training program, no problems. But you come and explain to me why you must go on that training. We have a serious conversation about it. Because at that time, I can assure you, some of the training programs we send people on will cost a big proportion of their annual basic salary. I've sent people on programs that total cost was 50% of their basic, of their annual salary. And this was a particularly painful experience because the person came back. I'm talking about 20-something years ago, before the days of Airtel and all of this, whatever. The training program was in Cyprus, and we were mandated to send people, and the poor guy went. And he came back, and I said, so what did you learn? He said, I learned how to use telephone to do market research. And I said, how many people have telephone in this office? Only the managing director, NITEL. I just want you to think about that. So right from the word go, that was a training that was going nowhere. Only then can you begin to equip the person. Once he has explained to me, this is what is expected. We discuss the metrics. How will you know when this has happened? And then we talk about it. It showed up in my appraisal for the past 2 years now, is this. Why do you think you keep doing that? Now you are reaching beyond what he knows. Because to be honest with you, think about it. 90% of the recruitment we do, we base it on knowledge and skills. Because those are the things that are on CV. Am I correct? Attitude is not on CV. When it comes to separating people, it's usually because of behavior, because of attitude and mindset. It's unlikely that anybody will fire you today because you don't know. It's going to be about who you are, because that's what gets in the way. What's our investment in changing that? That's where learning is locked. Once you have done that, then you provide opportunities for empowerment. This is where metrics come in. The metrics of the expectations must be made obvious, and the issues that get in the way of that must be addressed if it was not anticipated before you went on the training program or touched on during the program. And then finally, you monitor the context of delivery and identify new learning opportunities. Because once you begin to implement, there are things you didn't think about before. There are people it will affect within the ecosystem. Those people too may need to change certain things about them, about the context. That is what empowerment entails. All of these have one thing in common: relevant metrics at every point of the journey. Thank you very much.